And welcome into the football preview show, State Championship Week. Alongside Spencer Hutchinson and Jacob Hangus, I'm James Carter. Happy to have you along with us here on Kool TV. Guys, it's the final week of high school football. We have reached week 15, and this is the week that every team that played two-a-days goes through those hot summer workouts. This is the goal to get to. We'll break everything down here just a little bit. But, Spencer, this is an opportunity. You've been there. You know what it's like to play in that state title game, and it's one of those. It's the most important thing that you can accomplish for your entire season.
Yeah, anytime you get to keep playing football when you can sit down and eat Thanksgiving dinner, you've had a pretty good year, and it's the typical suspects. You look top to bottom, 6A to 1A, other than Sayre and one other two teams, typical suspects, Paducah Tillman, Trinity, Cooper, a couple other teams at Beechwood. I mean, how many times have they been in a state title game? Typical suspects, and but one thing that's for sure, the only class that's going to crown a first-time champ, 1A.
Yeah, brand new champion will come in 1A between Raceland and Sayre. We're going to break them all down. Jacob, you Spencer brought up a good point. If you're eating Thanksgiving Day turkey and practicing football, it's a good season.
Yeah, that's what a bunch of people look forward to all the time, is just playing as long as you can and winning. So we'll see who comes out on top.
Well, we got the scores rolling across the bottom of your screen there. That's from all the games from semifinals. So, guys, let's go through last week and see what we had here. So, Beechwood LCA 44-24. Bowling Green beat South Warren 31-28. That was the closest game of the entire semifinals. Cal over at Lex-Cath 50-14. Cooper, I believe we're down 17-7 to Highlands at halftime. This score is not a misprint. 61-23. Cooper comes back and wins that game. Franklin County over Cove-Cath 14-10. Owensboro Catholic over Somerset 27-14. Paducah Tillman over Corbin 31-14. Raceland Blanks Kentucky Country Day 14-0. Ryle over Great Crossing 35-7. Sayre over Campbellsville 35-14. Trinity defeats Frederick Douglass 17-0. And Union County over Bell County 43-21. Jacob, I'll start with you. Which game out of all of those jumped out at you that was like, wow, that wasn't what I expected, or that's exactly what I expected?
Probably the Union County and Belfry game. I really thought Belfry would win that game, but turns out Union County has something up their sleeves that we didn't think they had. So we'll see.
Yeah, this guy over here, he thought that Belfry was going to stay crowned, and again, you have to wonder, okay, how much did the trip across the state make a difference in that outcome or whatever? I don't know the travel plans that the Pirates had, but you go across the state and you run into a buzzsaw and a Union County team that took care of business.
Well, Belfry, for the first time in recent memory, seemed to get worse throughout the year. You saw them play Johnson Central. It was a one-score game. You seen them thump Pikeville. You seen them blow a game against GRC, but it just seemed like they never really, they peaked too early. If the team we watched scrimmage Raceland continued to get better throughout the season, then they would be playing this week at Kroger Field. Unfortunately for Union County, that's a great win for them, but they're going to play Cal and they're going to lose. So I'm just calling it what it is.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. Lex-Cath runs into the Cal buzzsaw, and again, they were 0-5 at one point in the team. They were still ranked in the top 10, and there was a reason because of that, because once they got out of the gauntlet of the schedule that they ran off 7 in a row.
Lexington Catholic's very good. We got to watch them firsthand. They love to throw the bubble screen. They like to get their speed out in space, but when speed matches with speed, it comes down to different skill positions, and Cal's just way too much. I think it's still a great year for Lexington Catholic. I think the way they were able to make moves in the playoffs contributes to the early season schedule they had. I think they had Boyle County, they had Highlands, they had a couple of those other teams that were really, really good. And, I think that their coach kind of sent a message, like, even on our down years, because it was a little bit of a down year for Lexington Catholic, we're not afraid to play the top dogs, and I think that they were able to make a run at the end of the year. Unfortunately, they kind of got a bad draw. Had to go play Cal, which is always really bad news. But I thought that, that score kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought it would be closer than that.
I thought it would be closer than that, too. We talked about it on the show that week, and we said that we felt like the Cal Central winner, that was your winner in 3A. And Cal takes care. They lost by 20 in the regular season. They took care of business, no problem.
What hurts Lexington Catholics are real small up front. They're not. They ain't got a whole lot of size on their offensive line. Their defensive line's not real big, but they're fast. Their power steps, the way they're able to shed blocks, the way they're able to get on linebackers, both offensive and defensive lines. But when you match up with a Cal team that has the same speed, but they've got 30 or 40 pounds on you, that's a problem. And I think that Lexington Catholic, like I said, nothing to hang their heads about. Because, I mean, other than Central one time and I think LCA, who has beaten Cal this year? I mean, Cal's won what, 38 of their last 40 games, 3 or 2 straight 3A titles. So that score did surprise me. I thought it'd be closer than that, but that just tells you how good Cal is.
Over in 2A, Jacob, Beechwood does what Beechwood does this time of year. You look across and you see Beechwood, and you're like, oh, God, not them again. But LCA runs into Beechwood again. Beechwood does what it does, 44-24. I've seen the LCA team in person. They are legit. They are big up front. They've got D1 players. They've got great speed. Their quarterback can get on the edge. For them to lose by 20, that shows you the power and the skill that Beechwood possesses.
Yeah, Beechwood knows how to play when it comes to playoffs. They've been a powerhouse for I don't even know how long.
People were sick of them being in 1A. They leave 1A and they just go to 2A and start doing the same
Listen,
thing.
you better be careful saying Beechwood around here. That's almost a cuss word.
I know it is. That's a bad word in Raceland. They were glad to see them ushered off.
See, I'm not from here, so it,
well,
Beechwood and Mayfield. Don't say those 2 words here.
Listen, if you think you're having a real good year in Raceland and Westwood, wait till you play Beechwood. Then you'll find out how good you are. Well, we've all heard the stories, man, where if you talk to some of the older players that have come through, back in the 80s and 90s, and they'll say, man, we were really good, and then we went to Covington and got killed by Beechwood, and it's just one of those things that they just play a different style of football. But one thing about that game, a lot of people don't know, 44-17 at one time. So this was not we just barely snuck by. They thumped them. I mean, this game was never close.
It was never close. The big thing with Beechwood, and this is, we've talked about this a little bit, Owensboro Catholic, are they ever going to put the bride's dress on? Because this was the year that everybody felt like this was Owensboro Catholic's year to win it. And then just all of a sudden, here comes old Beechwood right out of the woodwork. And again, you'd have to be a fool to bet against Beechwood just because of their experience and what they do when they get to pro.
I'm not going to shy around it. I will always root for my public schools. And no, I don't think they can beat Beechwood, James. I mean, do you guys think so? After what I've seen them do to LCA, I think Owensboro Catholic's a great team. I've seen Owensboro Catholic lose state titles before, especially the one back in 2005. Saw that in person.
Well, and you look, I mean, they played Covington Catholic to a 49-28 loss. Covcath played in the Final Four in Class 4A. So, I mean, that's something that you look at there. And the rest of their games, I mean, they pretty much handled their opponents. Pulaski County right out of the gate, 28-27. Playing Campbell County, Dixie High, Simon Kenton, 4 and 5, 6A schools, and a 2A school. That's what they do.
After Game 6, they hit a different gear.
Yes.
It was almost like, okay, now we have to get serious. And you kind of wonder, with the success that they've had over the decades, what's the motivation behind getting that next one? What are they, 27, 28 times state champs?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous number.
It's kind of you kind of wonder what motivation they have, and I think that it comes to people like us saying, well, Beechwood's down. Well, Beechwood's not down. They're going to be in Kroger Field, and they're going to play the same weekend as Raceland.
Yeah, they'll play at 4 o'clock on Friday.
Are we picking that game?
Do what?
Are we going to pick that game?
Yeah, we're going to pick the games here in just a second. We're just kind of going back and forth, just talking about last week. First off, Franklin County Covington Catholic. This one was a good one. 14-10, yes. Franklin County wins this one. And Franklin County has been the team sitting back in 4A that just kind of sat over the corner and let everybody talk about Paducah Tillman and Boyle County. Paducah Tillman and Boyle County. Those are the two that's going to be on the carpet. And then Boyle County gets upset. And now Paducah Tillman, they had a tough game last week. They finally pulled away late against Corbin, 31-14. A very good Corbin team, by the way. And Franklin County, here they come. Can they get it done on the carpet?
They absolutely have a chance. I think they have a chance. I'm not going to pick that game yet because I want to see what Jacob says first. If y'all are just joining us for the first time, Jacob copied my picks all year long.
Yeah, he admitted it too. That was something he did put out there. He did.
I've already lost to pick him. Me and James have already lost.
I lost like in week 3.
We'll give you your victory this year, but next year we'll have a different format. James, I agree, man. They've kind of just been over in that corner. Franklin County, a team that you don't really pay attention to because 4A is just full of heavyweights, and it's not a fancy Franklin County team. It's not one of those newcomers. If it's not Boyle or Paducah or Corbin, you don't really pay attention to them. Here they are in a state title. And truthfully, what are they, undefeated?
They're undefeated. Second game of the season, Lexington Christian, 39-33. They win that game. Other than that, they hadn't given up more than 2 touchdowns until they got to GRC at the end of the season, 52-17, and a win over that one. They've run through Spencer County, Bardstown by a total score of 101-26.
Yeah, both those teams are terrible.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
And then you get to Covington Catholic, and that again, you want to see your toughest opponent of the season. Did everything pay off of what they did? And obviously it did, because they've come away with a victory.
Well, imagine how much momentum Covington Catholic came into that game.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, imagine the stuff they've heard all week. Oh, you guys got it made. You're going to win the state title. Franklin County's like, we'll see about that, buddy. and Franklin County sent them home. So, Covington Catholic now, they're not going to get a state championship trophy, but they can always, tell their grandkids, we beat Boyle County.
and that's the thing, is that when you look at what Franklin County did this season, undefeated, and sitting behind at that time 2 other undefeated teams. All year long in the AP vote, it was Boyle County got 15 of the 16 votes for number 1. Paducah Tillman got 1 first place vote, and then Franklin County was 3rd. And that was the way it voted across the state in the AP all season long.
You know what else helped Franklin County? The RPI.
Yes.
RPI really helped Franklin County, and when they saw the Covcath Boyle County score, I bet that they thought they'd won twice that night. They really, it's not because they didn't think they could beat Boyle, but it's an easier task to beat Covington Catholic. Listen, there's no mistake about it. That was an upset that Covington Catholic
did.
100%.
It was. I mean, the biggest upset I can remember in a long time. I mean, in any class. Can you guys remember, besides Hazard going to Pikeville a couple of years ago? Covington Catholic's a good team, but were they Boyle County? A team that went to St. Edwards and blew out the number 1 team in Division I in Ohio? That was a big-time win, and Covington Catholic probably came in that game flying around 100 miles down. Franklin County said, you know what, we're going to send you home.
Cooper doing what it did to Highlands was phenomenal. 17-7, they were down at the halftime.
Yeah,
they put up 61 points and most of this coming in the second. And I've seen that Highlands team. Grayson played them back in the early part of the season. They're big, they're athletic. They roll guys off, they roll guys on. It never falls off. To hang 61 against Highlands, that's saying something.
Yeah, offensive explosion. And I never want them to have to play from behind, because they proved that they can score quick and score a lot.
Yeah, and that's something you run into in the postseason, is when you get into games that you have to play from behind, and you go in, you scored 7 points the entire first half, and then all of a sudden you hang a 60-burger on the scoreboard. Something clicked.
Yeah.
Now, whatever that motivational speech was or whatever that the coach gave, something worked, but you've got to also think about on the backside of that, you don't want to have that same thing happen at Kroger Field.
No, because there's going to be a lot of nerves. There's going to be a lot of jitters, a lot of stuff going through the players' heads, like, oh, we're playing for this, and we want the gold. We don't want the silver. So it's a lot of confidence when you can come back down that much.
But how much of it is an avalanche effect for Highlands? How much is where maybe a fumble late in the third quarter and you're deep in your own territory, you're already down a couple of scores, they punch it in there and it's a 21-point game and you just say, you know what, forget it. And it's one of those things where if the defense isn't playing real hard or they're not doing good that night, does the offense put the effort that they always do together? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think this may have been an avalanche effect. Do you really think that Cooper is that much better than Highlands?
It's for it to be you've put up 56 points in 24 minutes.
It has to be an avalanche
there
effect.
has to be
Nothing
something
against
going on.
Cooper, nothing against Highlands, but when you score like that, something went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you
Highlands.
had to have some defensive
Yeah,
turnovers that
I
led
mean,
directly to points or just short fields.
maybe
blocked
fumble and
kicks,
kickoffs.
Yeah, just something crazy that
Yeah.
took all the plays. All right, so let's jump into making our picks. We're going to roll through most of these until we get into 1A, and then we'll break 1A down. So let's start first with Class 6A. See if my producer, yeah, there we go. Ryle and Trinity, both teams ranked at 12-2. Ryle with a win over Great Crossing, 35-7. Trinity over Frederick Douglass, 17-0. And it's kind of what we were talking about Beechwood earlier. It seems like you turn the calendar and you get to Kroger Field and you look up and all of a sudden there's a Shamrock standing in the middle of the field.
Well, the Shamrocks were in the middle of the field come week 2. Week 2, 6A just imploded itself. I mean, you had DuPont Manual lose, you had St. Xavier lose, you had Louisville Male lose, and then Trinity sitting over there like, oh, well, all we got to do is just win a couple more games and we're at Kroger Field. Funny thing about this, though, when I played in the state championship game, we got to go watch the 6A game the night before. It was 4A at that time. And it was Ryle and Trinity. At the half, Trinity was beating them 45-0. And so we left. I don't think that's going to be like that this time. Ryle puts up a fight. Trinity brings it home again, though, man.
This Ryle team is no slouch. I mean, they have gone through teams. They've done their business. They beat Covington Catholic to start the season off 30-14. They knocked off Connor and Cooper. The only loss they had early was to Cooper, 21-14. They lost to St. X 31-24. Since then, they've just been running through teams. And then they got St. X when it mattered the most, 38-17 in the postseason. So, again, I think that this game has the potential of being a really good football game because you're going to get two teams that have comparable options they can go out with, that they're going to be able to go out there and put their best foot forward on the carpet.
Yeah, and this is not a home game for either one of these teams. I think it's important to note that. I'm not saying, when Trinity had a short trip when the state championship games were played at Papa John's Cardinal Stadium, Ryle's going to have to get on I-75 South and come to Lexington, and that's a really big school, guys. I don't know if you know. Have you ever been to Ryle's facility? They're going to bring a ton of people. I think something like that matters. I think special teams plays a role in this game, but I think Trinity, close. I think Ryle's a good team, man.
Yeah, take nothing against Ryle. They're a good football team. This game plays Saturday at 4 o'clock. It's the second game on day number 2 there in 6A. Jacob, what do you think about Trinity?
They have a very good quarterback, and he won this game as a freshman last year, and so he knows what it takes. They have the guys around him that knows what it takes. So I think Trinity comes out, and I agree with Spencer. I think it's close.
All right, there we go.
What'd you pick? Who'd you pick?
I didn't. I was just letting you guys go at it.
Listen to this.
Listen,
this is, what are you, Curb Street?
Yeah,
Listen,
you wish I was on Third Street. You wish you were standing next to royalty like that. Because, no, he wouldn't be allowed here because he picked the Buckeyes for everything.
That's true.
They couldn't beat Michigan last week, so they're not even in this show. Yeah, there we go.
It's okay.
I'm going to go Trinity. I'm going to go back to my Louisville roots. I spent 10 years down there. I was always, around people that was around Trinity and stuff. I think this is going to be a one-possession ball game.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a worry in the trenches. First one to 21 wins this football game.
I think it's low scoring, too.
Yeah, I think it'll be a
I can see a
grind-out.
21-17, something like that.
21-18, 21-17, something like that. It's going to be a low-scoring game. This one should be a phenomenal game there in Class 6A. Again, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Okay, 8 o'clock game Saturday night. This is Class 5A. Cooper and Bowling Green. And you look at this Bowling Green South Warren game. We talked about it last week. We said this one was going to be a war. I think these two teams played in the state championship last year.
Yes.
It was a war. 31-28. Bowling Green gets through. The Purples, they push their record out to 12-2. And Cooper, 14-0 though. And Cooper has just looked really, really good.
I think, we said it last week. I think Cooper's been the best team in 5A all year, and it'd be wrong for me to pick against them. I think Bowling Green's had a great year. Funny thing about South Warren and Bowling Green, only separated by 8 miles.
Yeah.
So imagine the crowd they had there.
Well, and that averaged out some of your distances of travel last week. Everybody worried about Union and Belfry. You had 8 miles there between the two.
And of course, we were on the road. We had to go all the way to Louisville and freeze to death.
Yes, it was cold.
You guys were real cold. Would you have heated jackets on?
No, he did. I did.
Yeah, Jacob. Yeah, you're real cold. I think Cooper, man. I think Cooper wins. I think they win by multiple scores.
Yeah,
I almost wanted to whisper that.
No, well, you got people that always whispers in his ear, so he's trying to do a little bit of whispering too. You look at what Cooper's done this year. I mean, they have just steamrolled people. They hung 62 on Great Crossing, 63 on Dixie Heights. They have not scored less than 56 points. No, I'm sorry, 45 against Scott County on November 15th.
Man, they must have had a bad night.
Yeah,
41 against
45-20. They in the postseason 56-45, 56-61. They go out and just put up a lot of points, and they do it through the air. Cam O'Hara, 3,355 yards, 49 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I don't care who you're playing, what level you're playing backyard football or playing at 5A. That's remarkable numbers.
Give me Cooper easy.
Yes, Cooper easy.
Yeah, I go with Cooper there as well.
Nothing against Bowling Green. This is Cooper's year.
Yeah, and again, I think that you look at the way that it sets up. I mean, it's no secret, and it's not been any secret. Cooper has been the field of the class for 5A all season
I believe
long.
Cooper was the runner-up last year. aren't they?
They're going to take that bridesmaid dress off. They're going to be the bride. They're going to taste some gold.
Well, they hope
down.
so.
They hope so. But the purple's trying to do some damage as it goes through. All right, off to 4A we go. And we look at Franklin County, Paducah Tillman. You get two teams that will play as undefeateds. Paducah Tillman, the Blue Tornado. Again, as I said, in the AP poll all year long, there was one guy that voted them number one over Boyle County. Now he looks like a saint. But either way, you look at Franklin County was actually above Paducah Tillman in the RPI, just enough to put them at 2 instead of 3. But last week, Corbin, 31-14 for Paducah Tillman. Franklin County gets the win over Cuff Cass. I think this one sets up to be another good football game, but that Paducah Tillman team, they have a lot of offensive weapons.
They do, but James, I'm picking Franklin County. I think they've been under the radar all year long. I think that everybody's telling Paducah Tillman it's yours to lose, yours to lose. That's a lot of pressure, man. Paducah Tillman was, they weren't in the state title last year. They have a lot of firepower. You mentioned they got a 4-star corner on that team also. Their defense is really good too. Franklin County, man, they just keep winning and winning. They've just been steady. And Paducah Tillman, I tell you what, I hate to say this, they're so far away, we don't get to watch them.
Yeah.
That's a different time zone. So we don't get to watch Paducah a whole lot. I'm going to say upset, man. Give me Franklin County.
Jack James, the quarterback for this Paducah Tillman team, you talk about video game numbers. 3,781 yards, 56 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
Yeah, but the teams they played have been terrible, James.
But that's okay. I mean,
play
I don't
isn't
know that I
funny.
could throw 3,700 yards in backyard football.
I could.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah,
I've seen you play Madden.
Yeah.
Jacob, Franklin County or Paducah Tillman?
Paducah Tillman.
I'm gonna go with the Blue Tornado. I like their mascot. Again, I think this is gonna be another good football game that we'll see as it goes through. But Paducah Tillman, I had them ranked at 2 all year long behind Boyle County, and I think they get it done here in Class 4A. Okay, off to Class 3A. Again, it's hard to pick against this. The Centurions and Union County, and Union County, thanks for coming. That's kind of what I want to say. But Cal is Cal until Cal isn't.
Yeah.
And right now, maybe that loss they took to Central at the middle part of the regular season there, maybe that woke them up. But they have been just a juggernaut since then.
I think Union County's had a great season. I think they played very well against Belfry. And a lot of people from Belfry we talked to in the group, and they said, wait and see. The Union County's going to go beat them. You're wrong. This is a different breed of football. I think Cal wins, James, and I might put 20 on it. I think a 20-point spread's about right. I think Cal's just, when they put it in fourth gear, there's nobody in 3A that has anything for them. Cal, easy.
Well, fourth gear is actually fifth gear for them because Connor Hodge has accounted for over 4,200 yards all-purpose between passing over 3,400. He's rushed for over 800. He's also got 53 touchdowns on the season.
Yeah.
If you're going to take away somebody, you got to find a way to take away number one. And so far this year, nobody's really done that.
No, I think it's Cal's to lose. So, really, I don't know.
Now, I'll be rooting for Union County. I think that's important to note. I'll always root for my public schools. I'll root for the kids that ride the buses in the morning. I'll root for those kids, the blue-collar families. And I'll always will, but I just think Cal's too much. Cal's too much.
Darwin Cotton, what a name for a wide receiver. This guy's caught 20 touchdowns this season.
Well,
Where's number 35 to? What's a wide receiver? Who wears number 35?
And look at their schedule. Look at Cal's schedule. They haven't ducked anybody.
No,
They played some tough teams.
Owensboro, North Hardin, Lexington Christian, Ryle, Manual, Central. That was the game they lost 48-28.
Yeah.
That was back on October 18th. Since then, it has just been buzzsaws. E-Town, Fern Creek, Marion County, Mercer County, Central 28-6. They're in the Elite Eight, and they go through Lexcath last week 50-14.
There's not a bad team on that schedule.
No. I mean,
Not at
they
all.
played. They didn't duck anybody.
I said not at all. It wasn't a bad team.
Yeah, it's without a doubt. They certainly went there. All right, off to 2A we go. God, I feel so bad for Owensboro Catholic. Owensboro Catholic and Beechwood. And again, Jacob, we kid about this, but Beechwood, it's anybody in Class Single A, Beechwood is a bad name.
Yes.
Okay? Mayfield was a bad name. And then they finally moved out of 2A. And what did they do when they went to 2A? They both go up there and they start beating up on everybody again. And Owensboro Catholic, they've been so close. And they get there and they look across the doorstep, and there stands the big bully again of Beechwood.
Yeah, Beechwood by a lot, I think. just because, Owensboro Catholic has had a good year, and everybody thought this was the year. But you run into, as you say, a cuss word around here in Beechwood, and I think Beechwood takes it.
Especially, I said this last week, that Beechwood LCA was your championship game.
Yeah.
I totally felt like that was. And again, no slight against Owensboro Catholic. I haven't seen them this year. I know they've got some good guys. They've been highly touted through the rankings and stuff. But when you roll in inexperience against tradition, that tradition stands tall, especially when it gets to the biggest place.
It does, and you don't want to be real trigger happy after seeing the result with LCA and Beechwood. You automatically say, oh, well, the Owensboro Catholic can't beat them. Guys, they're pretty good, too. I think this is a good game. I don't think this is a 49-12, 49-20 game. I think this is a good game, but it's tough to go against Beechwood. I think that what they did, and but you know what? I've had Raceland people tell me that Raceland should have beat LCA.
So, I was there. There was about 3 yards and about 2 plays that changed the outcome of that game.
And Raceland, nothing against them. They're Raceland's defense, let me tell you something, top 5 I've ever seen around here. But LCA, how big of a win is that though for Beechwood? Is that an upset in your mind? Do you consider that an upset?
It wasn't an upset. I don't think it was an upset. I think that you had two of your top teams in Class 2A, but I think that the way that they flexed against LCA.
Well, the score surprised you,
yes.
Right? Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if Owensboro Catholic won this game. Give me Beechwood.
He's always trying to milk something out of it.
Hey,
you look at Owensboro Catholic, though. Brady Atwell, 3,400 yards, 47 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Warren Ebelhar has caught 13 of those, almost 1,130 yards. He's got another guy that's almost 1,000 who's got 21 touchdowns. It's no secret you're going to throw around the football. But the one thing you got to keep in mind, it's going to be cold and it's going to be windy on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And that is certainly going to change some aspects on some of these teams that like to go air raid attack.
Yeah, but it's dry. It's dry.
It will be dry.
Now we'll talk about this here in a little bit. I think it favors the quarterbacks who don't have to throw the ball 15 yards or more, and that's why I think Raceland will be heavy on the run. If they don't have to throw the ball, they're not going to.
No, it's
Beechwood.
And that's something with what we see from what Beechwood does. Again, you understand if you see Beechwood, they're probably going to line it up and try to run it down your throat if they can. You look at their quarterback, Clay Hayden, thrown for 2,800 yards this year, 46 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Chase Flaherty has carried the ball 186 times for 1,381 yards and 26 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's a very balanced attack. Again, it's a little pass heavy. But again, when you've got a running back that's gone for almost 1,400 on the season, when you get into the dog days of summer, you're throwing the football around. When you get into fall and you get into October and you get into November, that's when you start lining up runs.
Yeah, I think that this game will be won at the line of scrimmage. Both teams we know they can throw. We know both teams can throw. Okay. What team can get a 4th and 2? What team can line up and just say, all right, we're going to line up and run halfback dive and try to stop it? I think that team is Beechwood.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I've said that pretty much since we've been talking about this in the postseason. I think Beechwood was, again, if you put them in the mix, it's hard to go against those.
Well, how much does the name on the chest mean?
Ask Raceland.
Well,
that means a lot.
It does, but I don't. And I remember Beechwood and Fairview and Raceland playing. I don't ever remember Raceland or Fairview being better than Beechwood, though, ever.
Well, you look at Raceland's first trip to the state titles, 2017. They get hot. They were 6-4 going into the postseason. They get hot. They make their first ever bid on the walk-off kick here against Pikeville.
Yep.
They go to Kroger Field. They play Beechwood. They lost 41-0.
I know,
thanks for playing.
But
and I will say this: I called that game, and it was a different level
of football.
It's
just totally different.
Across the field, they had a kid that was a wide receiver that had caught like 6 passes all year. He caught 8 passes in the first half.
It's tough to describe that to people who are used to watching Eastern Kentucky football and would go into these bigger cities like Lexington or Louisville or Covington and go and watch how fast these kids are. Go and watch how deep these teams are. When you're able to run on a punt team, who none of these kids play on offense or defense. When you're able to run on a kickoff, that's not gassed, or a kickoff return who's fresh, with a couple wide receivers out there who probably haven't even caught a pass all year. It's a game changer, man. And I know that they're only a 2A school. Beechwood's got that luxury.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, it's come to the point of the show where we're going to really throw an anchor down and talk a lot about.
Here we go.
Because we go to Class 1A, and this is Raceland and Sayre. A rematch of last year in the Final 8. Raceland goes down to Sayre and just basically says, we're going to run the football down your throat, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop us. And that's exactly what they did. They snapped the ball 76 times that night. They ran it 69 for almost 400 yards. And it was just a ground and pound. And it was funny. There was an interception that Logan Lundy threw late there in the ball game. I talked with Coach after the game. He said, well, we probably had 70 rushes if a dumb coach wouldn't have called a bad play and tried to run the ball instead of throwing it there. But this is a game that both teams have never won a state championship. Sayre, first ever time to the title game. This is Raceland's fourth. You're not looking across at a team named Pikeville. This is an opportunity where you should walk in and feeling like, okay, put all the other naysayers out there. We're the team to beat because we've been here, done that.
How much of the game, though, was dictated by the weather? Because I was down at Bell County, you were in Lexington, it was nasty. And you said that the field held water, and it was pretty good, the field conditions. How much did that play into the fact that Raceland got really run heavy? Do they do the same thing Saturday?
Oh, I think 100%. If Raceland can line this football up and run it for 12, 14, 15 times a drive and go get points, they won't throw it a single time if they don't have to. Now, they're going to throw the football. But I think Raceland, unless it has to, will throw the ball fewer than 10 times this football game.
You know, and if I'm Coach Mike Sammons, I know some of these players are watching, and I don't care. They know how I am. I'm going to my offensive line saying, we win or lose by how you play. If we're able to get 3 and 4 yards a pop, guess what? You guys are going to be the most tired you've ever been. But you're going to put a ring on that finger come January. I think the game's won and lost at the line of scrimmage. I think Raceland's defense does a really good job of not letting anything behind them. Sayre likes to throw a lot of dig routes. They'll throw out routes a lot. They'll flip the plays and run the same exact thing to another side just to try to keep the defense on their toes. But I will say this, Pennington predetermines his throws sometimes. He puts a lot of air under his passes. He's not got like the strongest arm in the world. He's very good. Sayre's very well coached. They've got a lot of great players. They're not in the state championship for no reason. It's a good team, guys. Raceland will have to play well, but I don't think 14 points wins you a state title. They're going to have to score more than 14.
And Jacob, this is something I've talked about all week. This is not a game that Raceland's going to hang no points up on defense. This Sayre team, they score a lot. Now, again, have they played a gauntlet of a schedule? No. But they've played the teams in front of them, and they've done what they should do with them. They beat them handily. Probably the most they've been pushed this year was the Bracken County game early in the season, and then Paris in the second round of the playoffs. Other than that, they've pretty much been on cruise control most of the time.
Yeah, last week was my first time watching Raceland in person, so I really like their defense. We preached that all year long that they have a very good defense. So I think Raceland's defense wins them this game, and I think it's probably a one-score, maybe 3-point game.
The Jacobs are jumping into the pick.
My
goodness, he's ready to get out of here.
Ready to go. The thing I said this a lot, 14-0. That was not indicative to how much they get. No. Raceland's defense totally eliminated everything that KCD did. They had 129 yards of offense. 44 of those came on one play on a busted play on a third down and long.
Yeah, and I think that play was late, so they were used to them running the ball. They were used to the motions, used to everything, and then Raceland found out and forgot that they had receivers, and they just dumped it over the middle, and they got their 40 yards. But we were talking on the way home, and I don't think they got inside the 35 in the second half.
They got to the 35 one time. That was on the kickoff on the second play, their second possession of the football game. That was as far as they made it. They came across the 50 2 other times. They never went past the 35 for the Rams.
But KCD's best play that they had all night long was that fullback dive. They were shooting A-gap, and one thing that I noticed that the defensive coordinator did at the half, he may have been doing it all game, he had the nose diving down. He wanted to create a pile. That way the fullback, as soon as he got the ball, he wasn't getting any momentum, giving him a little extra time for the linebackers to make a play, and I think that hurt KCD a lot.
Well, and Chris Bradlin is a guy who plays at nose for Raceland.
Yeah.
And he's a guy, you look at the numbers, and you see Lyndon Salmons, Alex Headley. You see their numbers up there on the top. And then all the way down through here, through the sifting, and all of a sudden, boom, there's Chris Bradley.
Yeah.
It's because he's taking on a lot of that responsibility of taking away that center, taking away the A-gap, and what that does, it allows those 4 guys behind him, which is prototypical Raceland football. The front 3 do their job. The 4 guys behind them clean everything up.
Listen, I played nose guard in high school, and it's not a sexy position, but I'll tell you what, it's one of the toughest to play because you're reading the center. If you actually know what you're doing, like Raceland's defense does, you can tell where the ball's going before it's even snapped. The way the offensive line lines up, most of the time you can always tell. And I think that you brought up a good point. Lyndon Salmons, one thing that I noticed they did, they moved him around a lot, James, putting him in different positions. And I think when you, like we said last week's show, if you run a flex bone and you get behind, you're requiring these big pass plays and these 2-minute drives, and the flex bone's not built for that. They literally, KCD literally ran the worst offense you could run against Raceland's defense. Hey, run into
strength against strength.
Literally the worst. You'd be better off running wing T. Or how about wishbone? Flexbone is the worst offensive scheme you could have ran against Raceland. Nothing against them, but it is, because we've talked about how good this front seven's been all year long. Yeah. And I think one time they kind of got caught sleeping in the secondary, but the next time that they threw one downfield, one of their players about got killed. So, that's one of those things that, secondary, I'm glad you said that. The secondary for Raceland will be tested this week like they haven't all year.
This will be the biggest test that they've seen in a passing attack since week 1 against Ashland. And that was LeBryant Strader.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you straight up right here. LeBryant Strader has a much better arm and is much more accurate than what Pennington is going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Taking nothing away from Luke Pennington. He's a phenomenal quarterback. He's going to do a lot of things. He's headed to Dayton to play college football. But Strader's arm strength is better. He gets his balls to where he wants to go. Pennington, like you said, and I've watched a lot of film this week trying to pick up on some stuff getting ready for the game on Friday. It's not that he's getting the home run balls. He
digging outs.
Digging outs. He likes to get his guys in space. Brock Kaufman is his main dude. He's headed to Ohio. He's over 1,300 yards on the receiving side this season. He's got 24 touchdowns. They want to get this guy involved. But Campbellsville last week limited him to 2 catches for 4 yards.
Well, and their receivers are very good. And sometimes they'll just wrap a receiver around or a tight end around, sit him right in the middle of the field, and just sit him down as a check down. And Pennington will hit him quite a few times a game. I think Raceland doesn't need to feel like a sense of urgency throughout this game. Even if you give up an early score, you were never going to win a state championship 7-0 anyways. So, I think that's something that I worry about a little bit. They've went 2 straight weeks and haven't given up any scores. What happens when Sayre takes the ball and drives right down the field the first drive and scores? What happens then? Well, how does Raceland respond? Because the last 2 weeks, James, they haven't had that happen.
Well, and I'll say this out loud. If that happens, Raceland's going to immediately say, oh, God, here we go again. Because that's exactly what's happened.
That's what I'm afraid of.
In the last 2 state championship games. Pikeville has taken the first drive right down the field and got points.
Yeah.
Now, if Raceland can, and again, there's going to be a lot of nerves on both sides of the football, okay? Raceland getting there, 3rd time in a row, everybody's putting the pressure there. You've got to go win this one. On Sayre's side, they've got the guys, the skill guys. But one thing as I was looking at their years, across their offensive line, they've got 4 sophomores and a junior that starts.
And that's bad news when you go against somebody like Lyndon Salmons.
Yeah. And, you're going to have the youth that's going to be there. And again, Jacob, it's not a team that they can play from behind. I mean, they're built to play from behind. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't want to get down there and get rattled early on. And that's on both sides of the football.
Yeah. Lyndon Salmons is a force, and I saw that last week. So we'll see how Sayre does, trying to stop him and everybody else they have to deal with in front 7.
Now, Pennington does do a really good job. He don't hold on to that ball awful long time.
Because
he knows where it's going.
He knows where
it's going.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. But, I don't think, and I think that's something that hasn't been mentioned, though. Sayre's running game's not bad. And I think that it's defenses are so scared of the pass that they don't load the box. So you essentially just have a 5-man box. You got your 2 backers, 3 down linemen. So, when you're blocking 5, and your guards are going straight down linebackers and your center's winning, your 2 tackles are winning, you're going to get 4 yards at least. I don't think that happens against Raceland. And here, go back to what you said. If they go down the field and score, oh, God, here we go again, forget that crap. Raceland is going to be just fine. Even if they go down the field and score real quick, I think Raceland, they will have to change the way that they approached this Sayre team. I feel like that they were comfortable going against Hazard and KCD lining up in the tee and just saying, all right, boys, stop us. Because, they were able to just lean on, and then 96 yards. 10 plays, 12 plays, whatever it was, 96 yards. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that this time. Be patient. You don't have to get it all back at once. But if I'm Mike Salmons, I'm deferring if I win the toss.
And we'll see how.
Prove how good your offense is against my defense, because my defense is pretty good.
Yeah, and that's where Raceland has hung its hat all season long. And I've talked with Mike several times about this. And one of the things that we talked about the first part of the year, I said, your defense, you had so many pieces that left. Where do you feel like that you hang your hat on it right now? He goes, our defensive line is where we're good at right now. He goes, but I feel like these other position groups are going to catch up. And then the last home game we had when Hazard was here, he said, I kept saying all year long that the other position groups are going to overtake that D-line. He goes, I was wholly wrong. He goes, nobody ever caught those guys. They are as advertised.
Yeah, and I think it's important that the secondary, when you talk about Jonah, you talk about Landon, you talk about McKee, they will have to communicate more than they have all season long. And I mean, talking before plays, you're going to have to communicate. You can't just assume that these guys can read your mind. Don't assume that these guys they know what to do in a certain formation. You should be barking it out before. As soon as they come in stack, as soon as they go out in doubles, as soon as they come into heavy set, you should be talking. Everybody's got to be talking. That way everybody's on the same page. And I think something, when you get in a game like this, James, can you live in the moment? I don't think that you can, because when I was there, it flies by so quick. And it's almost like, were we even there? Live in the moment and take every play as the last play of the game. And if Raceland does that, well, there'll be fire trucks coming through Raceland, boys. Well,
Jacob, you look at, he talks about the secondary, and one thing you're going to see with Sayre they do a lot of motion. They move guys around. They try to get that overload. They try to get the matchups that they want, and that's what Spencer's bringing up. Your linebackers have to identify that. The guys on the back end have to identify that. And the most important thing you cannot do, you cannot let that ball get behind you.
No, this is a completely different offense that they're facing this week compared to last week, so the defense is going to have to make adjustments and know who they have and who's going where when it matters. So, I mean, just don't let anything behind you. Keep everything in front of you, because the second they get behind you is when they dump it off and then they're gone.
and I think something that goes untalked about a little bit. Raceland's had a lot of pressure on this year to fill real big shoes. And guess what? Pressure is a privilege. It tells you how far this program's come this year. Because me and you talked in the preseason, and we did not think they would be at Kroger Field. I'll be honest with you.
I said it out loud. I said the ceiling for this team this year was 5 wins.
And me and you agreed. We said, when they play Sayre, the season's over. Well, it's definitely going to be over when they play Sayre. The question is, are they going to win?
Yeah. Is it going to be silver, or is it going to be gold tasting this year? The one thing that I think that we look at defensively, and then we're going to talk about the offense here in just a second, is the pressure that Raceland's defense puts on Pennington. Can you get him off his spot and speed his clock up, even if you don't get to him? Again, you said he gets rid of the ball very quickly, but can you speed him up just a little bit? Because even last week, his passes were not accurate going on those out routes when he wanted to try to get it into Kaufman and Pittman, those guys outside there trying to get those balls to him.
Well, I think that starts with, and I'm going to say this, and Mike Saban's going to get mad at me, I think it starts with laying the wood to some of these receivers. And them going back to the hole saying, man, you can't leave me hanging like that. Maybe on a mesh route or a sit down or a dig. Come in and punish these receivers and say, hey, maybe I don't want to catch the ball next time. That matters. People don't understand that. These punishing blows, we watch it from the stands, but if you've never been down there and experienced it, it's going to be, 33 degrees Friday?
Yeah.
It's going to be 19 at kickoff.
Yeah, listen, those hits, man, I'm telling you. And I think that Raceland, one of the things that made Russell's 2005 state championship team so good was the leadership they had at linebacker. They had Josh Wills there and a couple other guys that were just vocal leaders.
And that's what Logan Lockwood has been this year.
He has to be that. They have to have some guys that know where everybody's supposed to be at, their responsibility, and they're just going to have to play fundamentally sound. If you're on defense and you only play defense, listen, you just need to do your job. If you're on offense, we'll talk about offense here in a second.
Jacob, Logan Lockwood, he's a kid that has varsity experience from last year. He played a lot there when Braden Webb was injured. So he was the only guy in that linebacking core that had the experience of being on the field. But you look at what they've done out on the field this year. Another guy that's on the inside there with him, with Shannon Marucci, has been a huge key.
Oh, man.
But Landon Bloss. That kid, a sophomore, has just said, okay, now it's my time. And he's a kid that he won't say 3 words sideways, but he lets his pads do the talking.
Yeah, he's a very quiet kid. But
he's my cousin too, by the way. And I mean, I've had the kid in class. I couldn't get him to talk to me even there. So,
but I agree with Spencer. I think early on somebody's gonna have to give a little extra shove to one of the receivers coming across the middle, and just let them know where they're at. Let them know who they're playing, how good this defense is, and make them scared to catch the football.
Yeah, let them know they're not at their home field anymore. You ain't playing Campbellsville. This is not KCD. This is not Newport Central Catholic. This is the Raceland Rams. And I think that you got to set the tone early. I think that one big hit or maybe a sack at Pennington or maybe an almost interception doesn't even have to be an interception. I think that's enough to kind of teeter the momentum early on. And I think the first 5 minutes of that game are the most important 5 minutes of that game.
And I think that every ball for the corners and the safeties, every ball that goes in the air in that first couple of drives, it doesn't need to be a thought process of going for an interception.
No.
It needs to be
Knock
going
it down.
for a knock it down or just a punishing blow.
Ooh.
Hit somebody as hard as you can. Make that ball come out on that
Yes.
hit. You know, Landon did that last week on that ball that the kid had the ball on a
third down.
It was a third down. It was going to convert it. It was going to take it down near the red zone for KCD, and they had the momentum. He catches the ball, and Landon Goodall comes down, hits the kid, frees the ball loose, and it comes up incomplete. They have to punt the ball away. That set up the 98-yard drive because they pinned them at the 2. But that was a momentum play. That's something we have to see in this football game.
Yeah, definitely. That was probably one of the hardest hits I've seen in a while, and it's gonna have to take one of
my
those.
house.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
He
I
learned
taught
from
him
his
that
brother.
outside when we were playing basketball.
Listen, we know that is nothing true. I've heard him play basketball.
Anytime he comes in the lane, I foul the heck out of him.
All right, let's flip things over. Let's go offense now. And it is no secret. Raceland is going to line the football up, and they are going to try to run downhill. It starts with Shannon Marucci and what he has done in the backfield. Jonah Arnett has become a guy that just does a little bit of everything, and we've talked about it many times. He's a guy that Mike Sammons has talked about that he requires X number of touches on the football just because of what he brings to the table. Then you mix in Landon Bloss, and don't forget about Aiden Cooper. You've got 4 different backs that all have different styles of rushing that it makes it very difficult. And I know when I talked with Coach Jones from KCD, that was one of the things he poked out was we got 4 guys, and they run the ball all 4 ways, different ways.
Yeah, and rewind the game to last week. What did we say one of the keys was going to be? What me and James, and I think you even mentioned it, what was going to be a contributing factor to Raceland's win? What was a fumble? Well, guess what? They fumbled in their first play. Raceland just didn't get it.
Yeah, first snap of the football game, they fumbled it.
Yeah, so Raceland just didn't get it. It was a clean game. Raceland didn't turn the ball over at all. They had opportunities to. Raceland put up the ball on the ground a couple of times. I think they actually whistled Marucci down one time.
Yeah.
There was one he fumbled the ball right back.
He got fumbled it right to himself.
Right.
He was right at his feet.
And I think that contributed to the temperatures. They weren't used to practicing in it. They weren't used to playing in it. But now you have a week under your skin. I think that Raceland, guys, listen, I'll say it again. They will win a state championship by how their offensive line plays. Their defense is sound. We know how good their defense is. They're going to be all right. But 14 points is not going to win you a state title.
Not against Sayre. I think it's going to take 20, 21, 24 points somewhere in there.
I think you're safe at 28.
Yeah.
I think you could probably win at 21. 14, I don't feel good about.
Now, I will say this. You're talking about 28 points. You're pushing to the limit of what Raceland's averaged on the season. They're averaging 31 exactly.
Yeah.
Is what they're averaging giving up.
If they get to 28, I think that's the magic number. Yeah. Even 27. I think if you get to that point, what are the odds the defense gives up that many points? I'm not saying they won't. Don't get too cocky. Listen, you guys could go down there and definitely lose. Sayre's a good team. They've got receivers. They've got some guys that will cause problems for you guys if you don't talk and communicate. But I think that the magic number is 27. If Raceland's going to win a state title, and listen, these kids got to be tired of hearing, oh, is this their year? They're kind of like Owensboro Catholic a little bit, James. I mean, am I wrong?
The bridesmaid dress has been on 3 years consecutive.
And it's not really their fault. They've went into buzzsaw games. I mean, they played Blake Birchfield, he could have been Mr. Football in Kentucky the year he was at Pikeville. They played a Beechwood team who was probably their best team they'd had in 20 years. Last year's team, they finally got everybody healthy. I think Raceland beating them early in the year hurt Raceland. I think that really did. And Raceland had some players banged up. The Heighton kid got an injury late in the year. Yeah. That really hurt Raceland. And then what cost them the game? They weren't able to run the ball. Raceland could not run the ball last year, and it killed them because that made Lundy force passes into coverage. He was running around for his life. The offense was a disaster the whole game. Raceland will have to win. If Raceland's going to win, it'll be out of that T formation.
Jacob, we look defensively for what Sayre does. They're not big up front. They're athletic up front. The big numbers that jumped out at me, though, were their linebackers. Number one, Charlie Schlabach. He's their primary running back. He's also their linebacker. And he's the guy that's going to deliver the punishing blows. He leads the team in tackles. He's just a guy that gets behind his pads and plays downhill.
Yeah, we said earlier in the week that majority of their players play both ways. So I think those blows that we said earlier on offensive side of the ball will wear and tear them as the game goes on later on.
Now, I will stop you for just a second. Most of the players on the back end play both ways. The line does not. Different guys both ways on the line. So I think there's only one guy that goes both ways on the line. So they've got an offensive, defensive line. Linebackers, secondary, those are all guys going both ways.
Yeah, and if you look at Sayre's film, and I know people from Sayre will clip what I'm about to say, and that is fine. And get used
He
to
just
it.
wants people to clip.
Yeah.
Well, listen, just get in line. Okay, how about that? If you look at how they won that game, a 4-yard punt from Pikeville, a punt return touchdown, special teams killed Pikeville. Not only that, but guess what? Pikeville had a touchdown called back. Anthony went off the right side. He may have gotten down to 1 or 2, or he may have scored. Either way, the next play, Pikeville probably punches it in. That changes the game. Does Sayre have another, you hate to call it lucky, but, Raceland special teams, James, has not been good this year. They really possess no field goal threat. Anytime you get inside the 40, you have to go for it because you're not going to punt it. What are you going to do? Even if it's 4th and 14, what are you going to punt it in the end zone and get a 20-yard net punt? So special teams plays a role in this. I think Raceland, if I'm Raceland, I might kick it out of bounds every time.
Well, and that was something I've thought about this week, too, going into it. It goes back to a college game I did this year when I was covering UPike, and they played Reinhardt. Reinhardt hadn't been beaten in conference in like 5-6 years.
Out of North Carolina, that's a good team.
And they had a dude that was in the return game, and the coach told the kicker, he said, "So help me God, if you kick it to him, you'll come over here and sit on the bench." And he looked at his defensive coordinator, and he said, "You'll go upstairs." He said, "Kick it out of bounds or kick it to the other guy." And I think that's the thing that you have to be careful with. Number 2, number 6, those are the two guys you cannot let catch the ball with a head of steam coming forward.
No. And I think maybe if you want to try the little pooch floated kicks, give it to the up man and race down the field.
And that's something that Jacob Waller has done a really good job with on the kickoffs this year, is angling those balls into that coffin corner trying to kick off. He's not always been able to keep them in play, but he's been able to keep it to where you don't get a guy that just scoops it and runs.
Yeah, I don't like that either. Listen, if I'm Raceland, I'm kicking it out of bounds. I might kick it in the 14th row, but they won't return one for a touchdown on me. I promise you.
You just go say, "Hey,
Well,
you get the ball
make them
35
lie.
every
just
time."
don't even kick off.
That's
Just give it to
fine.
them
They
at
can have the
35.
ball at the 35 every time, but they're going to go 65 yards or they're not going to score.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm playing if I'm Raceland.
Because you look at what happened last week, the first kick that Raceland kicks off,
Yeah.
it nearly got returned for a house.
That happened a couple of times. KCD's biggest plays were on special teams. They got more excited after Raceland scored than when they had the ball. A couple of times, if it hadn't been for Waller making him cut back inside, he does score.
Yeah, Waller did a great job of doing his job on the back
Yeah.
line there as the kicker of taking him out. But the big thing is that when you get into games of this magnitude, and we've talked about this, we've heard it said both sides, possessions are fewer than what you get in a regular season game. You get fewer possessions. A lot of times because you're trying to run the football. Now, the question becomes is, can you capitalize on the possessions that you have? Because I'll be honest with you, if Raceland can keep this football game to where both teams possess the ball 7 times or fewer, they win this game easily. If this turns into say you're getting the football 8, 9, 10 times, I think you're getting into a shootout, and then you're turning into an advantage Sayre.
I don't know. I don't know. But and I'll say this and I'll let Jacob talk. If you take off the Raceland sunglasses and you get outside this area, I know all of us believe Raceland will win. Not everybody does. Majority of the Commonwealth thinks that Sayre's going to win, and the people in Westwood and Flatwoods sure hope they win. So, I think that, Raceland people are going to watch this. We're the underdog going into this game. Raceland's the underdog.
They are the underdog.
You listen to, and I know they were the underdog going into last year, but at some point, Raceland's got to feel disrespected because after they beat Sayre last year, and how their defense has played over the past 2 weeks. People were just disregarding how good Hazard was. Boys, Hazard put up 30 points against Corbin. They're a pretty good team. Just because Raceland beat them like a drum doesn't mean they're a bad team. Look what Beechwood did to LCA. Are they a bad team too? You know what I mean? And KCD, what? They kind of just, that was their team. You don't understand. KCD, this was their year.
Yeah.
This was the team that was going to make the run. And for them to get shut out on their home field in the semi-state championship game, that was a tough pill to swallow. Raceland's a good team, but they will win if they can run the football.
You always hear it say, defense wins championships.
Yeah.
Is that what we talk about with Raceland?
Yes, I think just play the game you played all year. And don't try to change anything. Just don't try to do the trick plays and all that stuff. Just play the game that's got you here, and I think Raceland comes away with the win.
That's something I've talked about this entirety going into this football game. Is you have to show up and play the football game that you've played for 14 games. You have to play the name that's across your chest, and that's you. And I've talked with Mike in every interview through the postseason, and every week he said, the thing we have to control is us. We cannot control the other team. And I think if Raceland approaches this football game like that, they have an opportunity to go make history. 99 years, they've been searching for a state championship. Their first ever trip was 2017. Now they're going 3 consecutive years, hoping to not be a bridesmaid coming home again with that silver trophy. And Mike told me after the game, he said, we're hoping to finally get that silver taste out of our mouth. It's time to go taste some gold.
Well, you know what? Sayre has to play against Raceland too. And I think that's something that, Raceland brand means something. They're not an unfamiliar foe down in Lexington, but they've, other than last year, they've kind of been a doormat. People just kind of walked over. It's not their fault. They've played some really good teams. Nobody around here would have beat those teams. But for Raceland, listen, I think you're going to find out a lot in the first 5 minutes. You got to be able to run the ball. And let's say Sayre goes down the field, they score on the first play, or they return the kickoff for a touchdown, or something happens, a player falls down and just something happens, and they score. Big deal. Who cares? Are you going to fold up and cry like a baby, or are you going to do something about it?
Well, it goes back to the thing that Coach Sammons has talked about the entire postseason.
Adversity, man.
Keep pounding, 48 minutes and body blows. You cannot, like you said, if you face adversity in that first drive, that first play, whatever, and you're down 7-0, you can't fold. You've got to stand up and say, okay, we're going to go down, we're going to score it, now it's a 0-0 ball game.
You have to score to win.
And here's the thing. That's exactly what happened last year. It was a shootout starting off. Sayre took the possession, and they went right down the field and scored. Raceland matched it. Sayre goes back down. Raceland matches again. And then Raceland got a turnover. And they, from that point, controlled the rest of that football game. That game set up to where the weather didn't matter. They were moving the ball how they wanted to on both sides of football. It was when Raceland got control of that game by taking the advantage away from Sayre with the possession, they controlled the game, and those body blows, they leaned on them. 14 play drives, 10 play drives, 6-7 minutes at a time. That wears on teams, and that's what Raceland's going to have to do. If Raceland can control the clock for 30 minutes, they win this football game.
And I think that listen, there's going to be some things in this game that's not going to go your way. There's going to be big momentum swings. I think that Raceland needs to keep their composure. They got to keep with the system. Keep on track. I think that, it's easy to say, oh, here we go again. We're just down here to lose the state championship game. It can't be like that, man. And I think Raceland finally has the weapons. And no offense to the prior teams, but they didn't have a lot of speed. They just didn't. They didn't. I think this year's team is faster. I think they're better defensively. No offense. There's going to be a lot of people say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I do. I get paid to do it. So I think that Raceland wins. I think it's a close game, but we'll find out a lot in that first 5 minutes. Yeah, truthfully, I'd like to see Raceland get the ball first, but if I won the toss, I'd defer and just say, all right. And I'd kick it out of bounds every time. Anytime I had a chance to, I'd kick it out of the stadium if I had to.
Kick it out of bounds.
Why wouldn't you, James?
Yeah.
Why would you ever take a chance of letting one of their returners win them a state championship? If you take what happened? Why did Pottsville lose? Because their special teams were terrible. Because they punted the ball 4 yards down the field and they couldn't tackle nobody on a punt return. That's why they lost.
Yeah. Special teams will certainly dictate the outcome in a game like this.
Yeah.
It always does. When you get into the postseason, special teams matter. All right, so let's officially do this. Let's make our picks. Jacob, Raceland or Sayre?
Raceland.
Give me a score.
Oh, wow. Let's see. 21-17.
We'll go 27, because I think we missed an extra point in typical fashion. And I think that they get 21, though, James. I think it's a 27-21 game. Raceland.
I'm going to go Raceland as well. I'm going to go 24-21. One thing to
We're
point
going
out.
to kick a field goal?
Yeah.
We're going to, and it would be only the second field goal. Raceland's 1 of 3 on field goal attempts this year.
Okay.
One thing to point out too, and this is something big for the kicking game. You're kicking on college uprights. These are narrower than high
About
school
3
uprights.
feet on each
Yeah.
side.
So you've got a smaller upright that you're kicking into, and that will make a difference at some point. Whether it makes a difference in the outcome of the game, I don't know, but it does. And until you get on an upright, when you look at a college upright, it is different.
And you got to remember, and I know that people are going to laugh about it, it's true. If you've ever been in a stadium that's empty, like the bowl style, you're going to have the bowl effect,
Yes.
which the wind's kind of like going like this. So, the wind's naturally going to pull the ball to the left or the right. How do you compensate for that?
And we'll see how much wind. Usually there is wind inside that stadium.
If I'm Mike Sammons, there is no chance I'm kicking a field goal. I don't care if it's 4th and 99. I am going for
Well,
it.
then you might as well punt
Yeah,
it.
you might have to punt it.
No, I wouldn't. Because my luck, they snapped the ball through the end zone. I didn't get to a state championship to fold the ball up and punt on 4th and 6 or less, realistically.
Yeah.
If I'm past midfield, there's no way I'm punting.
If I'll go against you on that, because if I'm across the midfield and it's 4th and 6,
No.
I believe in the kicker enough to kick the ball inside the 20. I'm not handing the ball to Sayer on a short field. Not doing
I'm
it.
not either.
Not a chance.
I'm not kicking to him for sure.
Not kicking to him. I'm kicking it out of bounds.
But that-
Did you
at the
start
same-
him at the 20 or start him inside the 20?
they're not getting the ball at midfield.
But I understand that. But what happens when the returner takes it 80 yards for a touchdown?
If you kick it out of bounds, you don't have that
But
problem.
I know, but these are not professional kickers. This is not Madden where you can take the arrow and point
Listen,
left or right.
I've watched Jacob Waller kick the ball enough this year. I trust him enough. He can kick the
He had
ball
a
out
few
of bounds.
hit a few good punts last week.
Yeah, he
I
knows
don't
where to
know.
put the ball.
I think. Listen, I'm risky though. I didn't get to the state championship to bring the punt team out if I'm at midfield. I trust my defense that enough. I think that's a luxury Mike Sammons has. I think that his defense is good enough to where he can kind of cheat it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm at midfield and I'm up a touchdown and it's 4th and 2 and there's about 2 minutes left and Sarah ain't got no timeouts, you best believe we're gonna line up and run that T. Jonah Arnett, look out for him. They put him in motion a lot more than what they'd had all season long against KCD. He's due for a big run. He didn't have one against the
So
whatever they are.
him and Dan Campbell will be standing over there trying not to punt.
wouldn't punt.
There are going to be some punts in this football game, to say the least. But either way, we're going to have a first-time state champion in Class Single A. Real quickly, before we wrap things up here, over tonight at Raceland Christian Church, they had the annual community dinner. And if you watch your screen, you'll see a politician working through the middle here. I think that's our own Spencer Hutchins. Look at him. He's shaking hands and kissing babies right there.
I didn't even get nothing to eat either. I really listen. They did a really good job over there. Raceland Christian Church, of course. Jason Lockett over there, a good friend of ours, and it just shows you the community support behind these boys. And win or loss, we're going to be proud of them regardless. But I think if you're Raceland, pressure is a privilege, and I think that I think this is. I hate to say it's the time, but if you just go down there and don't mess around, quit, don't listen to people like James or Jacob. Just listen to me the whole time and we'll be fine. I think Raceland wins.
Jacob, final thoughts?
I think the winner of time of possession wins this ball game. I think if Raceland can keep it.
That's bold, Jacob, because you could
20.
go 12 minutes and have the ball and not score.
But I still trust Raceland's offense enough. I mean, they took the whole fourth quarter away from KCD last week. KCD had the ball maybe a minute and 30
on that
seconds.
one drive after Raceland scored and made it 14-0.
They literally got the ball 5 seconds outside of the start of the fourth quarter, and they had the ball the entire fourth quarter.
Yeah, in the flex bone. This is not the flex bone. So what if Sayre scores first play every time, and then Raceland has the time of possession, but you lose by 21?
Well,
see.
and you're going to the other element of saying, okay, they're going to score every time down the field.
No, they won't.
And that's not going to happen, okay? Sayer is going
we
to
hope
score.
not. We hope not.
Sayer is going to score.
Yeah,
I will
listen,
call
7
it.
points will not. I don't even think
No.
14 wins you a state championship.
I think 17 or more, probably up closer to 2021, is going to take to win this football game. But I think either way it goes, it's going to be a phenomenal run. You've got two really good football teams. I'll be the first to say I was not giving credit to Sayer the credit they were due early in the season. But when they got into games when it mattered, they found a way. They were out big on Paris. Paris tied it at halftime. They come out in the second half, and they go right down the field, and they separate.
Yeah.
They beat Pikeville. Okay, you take down the 3-time defending state champs. That's saying something. I don't care who was on the other
agree.
side of the football. They beat Pikeville.
I agree.
Okay, so they take care of Campbellsville. Now you got to take care of the other guy across the field. You've got your city kids against your blue-collar kids. We'll find out Friday, high noon, down in Lexington of who's going to take home the gold trophy. For the Rams, 99 seasons in, still looking for that first one. For Sayre, they started their program back in 2017. Can they get a state championship here in their first ever bid to Lexington? Guys, it's been a fun year. It sucks this guy comes in right out of the gate and takes and wins our pick'em this year.
Yeah, that's because he cheated.
He didn't cheat.
Listen,
he even admitted it. He
Listen,
said,
I got the lead, and there were certain
And then he
games.
started
What do they call that, mirror driving?
Yeah.
There were certain games where I didn't know what to pick, so I went with him.
Yeah. So we're going to have to change
So
it
why
up
didn't you
next
go with James?
Well, did you see my picks this year? I wouldn't have gone with me either. Yeah. No, we're going
I
to
blew out James and Ben Sposser last year, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. I'm gonna send my picks to James through
Yeah,
email
we're going to have to
now.
change them up next year. We're not going to
Yeah.
let you
Well,
piggyback.
listen. After that, I picked first the rest of the way. So, I mean,
Well, yeah,
my
he
lead
had
only
the
grew.
lead at that point. He was
I
good.
had a
Yeah.
5-game lead.
Cheater.
Yeah, either way. So, Jacob, stay over here on camera. You keep walking, but you're worse than my kids in media.
Sorry.
You try to keep getting off a camera over here. It's
He's
pitiful.
gonna fire you.
Yeah, it's all. I will fire you. Hey, I got to give a hat tip to our producer back in the control room.
Yeah.
Cam Bryan, taking care of keeping everything on screen, trying to keep up with us three knuckleheads.
Yeah.
But greatly appreciate everybody that has tuned in with us throughout this time. This is something we love doing,
Oh,
talking
man.
football. But it's going to be a fun game Friday, high noon. I'll have the call from Kroger Field, high atop there in the press box. We'll start our countdown to kickoff coverage at 11:40. You can listen to the game here locally on 105.7 FM. We'll also have it on our YouTube page that you can go there. Again, it's an audio-only broadcast. There is no video allowed. So audio only that I'll have on Friday, and then high noon kickoff, and hopefully about 3:30 for Rams fans. You're tasting a little bit of gold and getting those fire trucks ready to roll back into Raceland with the first ever state championship.
So I'll be in the stands, and Jacob will be down the field, right?
Yeah.
Well, James has got luxury. Is it a pretty good seat looking down the field? I mean, is it a good visual?
I will say,
Ask his pen how far that drop
so
is.
last year I will never forget this. So it was 14-0.
Right.
Pikeville threw that halfback pass that made it 21-0.
Right.
And I had my iPad, and it was like this because I was keeping my stats on my iPad. And I just took my iPad and just kind of tossed it on the table. Well, when it hit, my pen comes out of my iPad, goes over the lip of the window, and down 3 stories. And so
Those things are expensive too.
Well, hey, you know what?
Still works.
That bad boy right there is the one that took the spiel down 3 stories.
That's the most blue collar pen I ever
I
seen.
love it, baby. That thing works just like I do. So it just
keeps pounding.
It keeps pounding. So, no, it's different being up as high because you're 5 stories up. So the big binoculars come out and actually become useful. But I really like being up there because you can see everything
I
develop.
think Kroger Field's the best place to have it because it's just I don't know. There's not a bad seat in that place.
It's not. Your Raceland will be on the visiting sideline again.
Oh, we're used to that.
Yeah, so they'll be opposite the press box, but
Opposite of the sun too.
yeah. So we'll see.
That's
how it
important.
plays.
Well, you might want the sun.
Yeah, you may want.
No, I don't want no sun. I don't care. Listen, it can't be any colder than it was Friday night.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, we'll see.
Whatever.
You guys can argue it out of that. Guys, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Again, first time here with us on the channel, hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you see something you like. Hit that bell. We'll alert you each time we put out new material. 12 noon down in Lexington, the Class Single A Football State Championship, Raceland and Sayre. One of the teams are going to take home their first ever title. We'll begin our coverage at 11:40 on Countdown to Kickoff on Kool 105.7 FM, as well as here on Kool TV. For Spencer Hutchinson, Jacob Hankins, Cam Bryan back there in the back, I'm James Collier. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the football preview show for state championship weeks here on Kool TV.